this tutorial, we're going to learn to make the scarf that I'm wearing right now. It's called Scarf in a Scarf, and it's by SKEINO. And if you'd like to get your kit to follow along, I'll give you a link here on screen to my website, where there'll be a link to SKEINO where you can see all the 24 different beautiful colorways. And I've done a couple of tutorials with SKEINO now, and I really love working with them, and I want to tell you a little bit about the company before we move forward. They are an international company that ships worldwide from Florida. They spin the yarn in Italy. The yarn is dyed in Germany, and the German facility that they have where they dye the yarn, it's an inclusion company, meaning that they're set up to employ people with special needs. And currently, over 50% of the people that work there have special needs and have a good job, steady pay. And they're really socially responsible this way, and this is one of the reasons I love working with them. And as of the time of this filming, they are just putting the finishing touches on their new facility in Florida, which they're also making into an inclusion company to employ people with special needs. And as you can imagine, I've had a lot of contact with these folks over the last few months working with them, and they're also just really nice people, which also makes me like working with them. For this kit though, specifically the Scarf in a Scarf, this has been a really popular pattern for them. It was featured in Vogue Knitting and actually made the cover of Love of Knitting. And the kit that you get comes with the yarn you need to knit the scarf. You actually end up with yarn left over after you knit the scarf. The yarn is 60% silk and 40% merino. It is beautiful luxury yarn, and the silk gives it this perfect sheen. It's really nice to work with. You also get a silk scarf, the Scarf in a Scarf, and this is hand dyed along with the yarn to give it this beautiful color match. Also in your kit, you'll get your pattern, which comes with 4 different patterns. I'm wearing the classic version here, which is this is what I'm going to teach here in the tutorial. You also get a mitered square version that I'm going to show you, and here I'll give you a picture on screen for the crocheted version. Take a look at that. And you also get a ruffled version, a ruffled knit version, and we'll take a look at that one here. I don't have samples of those 2 here in front of me, so I wanted to make sure you saw the pictures. Also, if you click through to my website, I'll have the pictures there. You can take a look at them for longer. What else do I have here? Be talking about this. I think I'll just get into showing you some of the different things here, because once you choose the scarf that you want to knit, you can weave the silk scarf through in different ways, and there are about 1 million different ways of wearing it. And I've had a lot of fun practicing, not really practicing, but trying out different ways of wearing it, because for me, it kind of depends on what I'm wearing the scarf over, because one of my coats is a deep V-neck, one of my coats is a crew neck, or if I'm just wearing it over a black sweater like this, you can really do anything. So this is an example of, well, let me show you the mitered square version first. It's made up of tiny mitered squares. It's a bit more difficult to knit, a higher skill level than the one that I'm wearing right now. And I have the scarf woven straight through it like, woven straight through it, up and down through. And you can wear this either as a normal scarf by tying knots in the end, or you can scrunch this up and do more of like what I've done here in tying it around your neck. Lots of different ways of wearing it. It's fun to play with it and try out different things. So that's the mitered square version with it woven straight through. And to go kind of in an order here, this is a different colorway with the scarf that I'm wearing. It's really just a garter stitch scarf with buttonholes in it. So the knitting's really pretty simple. And I have the scarf woven straight through this way too, and knots tied in the end to keep them together. And you can wear this as a normal scarf wrapped around your neck or kind of draped around. But I think things get really interesting when you weave the scarf, the silk through the scarf in a whip stitch fashion. And that means, always going in from the front around the back, from the front around the back. And it kind of curls up one end of the scarf and gives this twilled edge that I kind of have going on here. I hope you can see it. But it gives it really nice drape, and I like that. And so I'm going to try on a couple of different, I'm going to show you how this looks in a couple of different ways, wearing it longer. So I'm going to take this one off and hopefully not mess with my microphone too much. Here it is in a much longer style. This is the basic scarf with the basic scarf with the scarf woven through as like a whip stitch all the way through and worn long. And this is kind of like wearing it as a shawl. And I've tied a little knot in the bottom. Show it off. I think these colors are so pretty. I never wear them. They don't look that great on me, but I wish I could. Anyway, so this is how it is as a long shawl. And I'm going to show you kind of one in between here. This is like a medium length. I have all these tied already so that I can just pop them over my neck. It isn't that difficult to tie them on the spot, but okay. So this one's kind of a medium length, and I think this would look nice over a black sweater or something, because you end up, when you have it kind of this medium length, you end up with enough silk left over that you can kind of tie this rosette that I have here. And silk is so easy to tie, and it has good texture to it and holds things pretty well. But this, I believe this is in the same colorway that I have here, which is Norma. And I'll have all the colorways listed out for you on my website in the video description field below. So I think that's all I needed to show you on this one. Be sure to click through to the SKEINO website and take a look at the colorways that they have available there. And next up, we're going to run through the techniques used in the classic scarf, the main pattern scarf that comes in your kit. And these skills are going to be pretty easy for an experienced knitter, but I'm going to run through and tell you what they are. In case you want to watch through, because they are pretty simple, but I want to make sure that beginning knitters have the confidence to work this as well. We'll be working on casting on, counting garter stitch rows, checking gauge, working buttonholes, backwards loop cast on, spit splicing, and weaving in ends. And that's all coming up in the next two segments. We're ready to get started with the knitting tutorial part of this video, and again, this is a really simple scarf. It's appropriate for beginners, but I am going to walk through every single technique used in this so that beginners can knit this confidently. But if you're an experienced knitter, maybe you'll learn something. You'll certainly enjoy how easy it is to sit and watch Netflix while you're knitting this scarf. I don't mind simple knitting as long as I get to use gorgeous yarn while I'm doing it, and this scarf definitely fits the bill. So we're going to start first with the cast on, and before we take a close look at what I'm doing, I want to run through how to leave enough of a tail for a long tail cast on. So you want to take your needle, and for this project you can use circular needles or straight needles. I am using both here in my example to show you that either is fine. And this is how you can determine the length that you'll need, the length of a tail you'll need for any cast on. Leave yourself about a 6-inch tail and take your needle, and for each wrap, that's enough to cast on 1 stitch. So in this scarf we're going to cast on 40 stitches, so if you wrap the needle 40 times, that will be enough with a little extra left over to cast on. It's always better to throw away a few inches of yarn rather than having to redo the cast on several times. So I did not count, but we're going to pretend that that's 40. I marked that spot, and then I'm going to make a slip knot. Okay, now we can take a closer look while I do the cast on. There's my slip knot. I put my needle in there. I'm going to do the version of the long tail cast on that I like to do because I think it gives me the best tension. With the needle in your right hand, this is the same for right or left-handed knitters, take the tail end of the yarn and kind of palm it like this with your thumb on the yarn. And then flip your thumb, put the needle through the loop on your thumb, grab the needle with your left hand, take the working yarn, wrap the needle, and flip that loop on your thumb over the top. I'll go through this again. Palm the yarn, thumb on the yarn, flip, needle in the loop, hold that in your left hand, wrap the needle with the working yarn, and flip that loop over the top. And each time you do it, pull the 2 strings to tighten it up and take a look at how it looks, because the cast on row is kind of important in this, in that any tension issues will show. But as long as you go slowly and you take a look at each one, if it looks bad, you can just pull it off the end of the needle and try it again. I'll mention that the other way of doing a long tail cast on is the slingshot method. And I'll give you a link here to my video on how to do the slingshot method. I don't like it as well. I know it's faster, but I don't get the nice tension that I get with this way. Okay, so that's really it for casting on. Obviously I have not cast on 40 stitches, but you're just going to knit every row. And a quick review of the knit stitch is you put the needle with the stitches in your left hand, empty needle in your right. You approach the stitch from the left side, straight back, wrap the back needle, put some tension on the working yarn, and pull that loop through, then pull the old stitch off the left needle. In from the left side through the stitch, wrap the back needle, pull that loop through to the front, and then separate the two needles to get the old stitch off. And I am what's called an English or American knitter in that I hold the yarn in the working yarn in my right hand, but plenty of people hold the working yarn in their left hand like this, and it's really just the same. This is not the way I normally knit. It takes me a while to practice it to get good at it again. I have not practiced this morning. But either way is fine. Okay, I'll finish this row because I want to show you how to count garter stitch ridges. Okay. Well, the pattern will tell you exactly when to stop what you're doing and make a buttonhole. And the buttonholes end up being these little holes like this. And you can use a row counter or little tally marks on a sheet of paper to mark how many rows you're knitting. But really with garter stitch, it's easy to count because every ridge, every garter stitch ridge is 2 rows. And I'm going to pull out something much bigger here. I forgot to get my little pointer. Okay, this is a much bigger piece of, or a much bulkier piece of garter stitch, so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Each one of these ridges counts as 2 rows. So instead of using a row counter, you can just knit and then count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. And the pattern has you knit 20 rows. Is it 20 rows or 40 rows? Let me just double check this. The pattern has you knit 20 rows, so it's 10 ridges before you do the buttonhole. And then after that, it's 41 ridges, which ends up being 41 rows, which ends up being 21 ridges, because each ridge counts as 2 rows. So that's how you count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 20 rows of garter stitch. Easy as can be. And I'm showing you this bulky sample because it's a bit harder to see here on the smaller sample, but when it's right in front of you, if you do what I do, just take something like a pin, or I love these bamboo pins, and just count, put on your reading glasses, whatever you need to do, and count it. It's not that hard, but it's of course much easier to see it on this big piece. Okay, and the other thing we want to be careful about is checking gauge. And if you're a beginning knitter, you probably haven't had a lot to do with checking gauge, and you don't have to knit a swatch and check gauge that way with this project because it's kind of a small piece. You can just start knitting and then measure to see if you're getting the right size. And the pattern tells us that the finished scarf is between 7 and 8 inches wide. So just knit a little bit, knit an inch or two, and then measure and see if your scarf is between 7 and 8 inches wide, and mine is, so I'm getting proper gauge here. If your scarf ended up being, much bigger, like a 10-inch or 9-inch scarf, you can go down a needle size to make your stitches smaller and the whole thing will be smaller. Or if your scarf ends up being much too narrow, you can go up a needle size, and so you'll end up with a wider scarf. And really, with a project like this, the exact width of the scarf doesn't make a lot of difference because, of course, the scarf will be perfectly wearable at an inch narrower or an inch wider. And this project isn't really that important because you end up with extra yarn for this. So if you're knitting a much wider scarf, you still probably will have enough yarn to knit the whole thing, since SKEINO is very generous with the yarn amounts that they give us in this project. Okay, I am all set up here to work my second buttonhole, and that's what I want to show you how to do. And here's the buttonhole here, and it looks so tiny, but the silk scarf ends up, scrunching down to almost nothing, so it fits through there with no problem. So I am going to follow the pattern here and knit 18 stitches. That was very smart of me not to talk, because I got the count just right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make a really simple little buttonhole, and first thing we're going to do after knitting 18 is knit 2 together. So we're going to decrease 1 stitch, and then we're going to cast on 2 stitches. And to do that, we're going to use the backwards loop cast on, which is a lot like the cast on I just showed you, but it's like half the cast on I just showed you. Palm the yarn like this with your thumb on the yarn, flip the yarn around your thumb, slide that loop onto the needle and tighten it up. That's it. That's 1 stitch cast on. This is not a really great strong cast on for most projects, but when you only have 1 strand of yarn and you're in the middle of the work, this is a good way to get a few stitches on. Thumb on the yarn, flip it, put the needle in that loop and tighten it up. So we just cast on 2 stitches. I decreased 1, cast on 2. I want to decrease 1 more, so I'm going to knit 2 together. So even though, and then I'm going to knit to the end. So even though I've increased and decreased, I decreased twice, I increased twice, so the stitch count never changes from 40. And I want to show you the next row as well, because I want to show you how to approach these backwards loop cast on stitches, because they look a bit different than a normal knit stitch. So I'm going to knit up to the first backwards loop cast on, which is going to be knitting 19 stitches. I'm not counting this time, I'm just watching for the stitch. Okay, here we have what is kind of goofy looking. We have a hole underneath these 2 stitches that don't really appear to have a knot under them. They are just little twists on the needle. And so what you want to do is to use the tips of your needles where there's the taper and the needle is narrower, and right on the tip of the needle, it'll be easier to get your right needle into that stitch if you work on the tips of the needles, because there's nothing holding the stitch from just tightening up just as tight as it can go. The knot under a normal knit stitch keeps it from doing this. So I'm going to work it like a regular stitch otherwise, and do the same thing with the next one. And once you get your needle in there, you can pull it down to the fullest part of the needle to kind of stretch it out, and then work across the rest of the row as normal. And we'll take a look at our new buttonhole here. Okay. And here is our brand new buttonhole. You can stretch it out a little if you like. And I'm going to knit another, well, I just knit 1 row. I'm going to knit another 40 rows to total 41, and then work another buttonhole just like this one. And that's really the bulk of the scarf. That's really the whole scarf. Next up, I'm going to show you how to spit splice and weave in the ends. We're here at the last segment in the tutorial with just some of the finer points of finishing this scarf and making it look good. And the first thing I want to show you how to do is spit splicing, because eventually you're going to use up the first skein of yarn that you have and have to move on to the second one. And this yarn has enough animal fiber in it that you can actually felt the two ends of the yarn together, and you don't have to tie a knot and have more ends to weave in. It just all continues on like one giant ball of yarn. I'm also going to show you how to weave in the ends in garter stitch so that they look the best and they don't take away from the elasticity of the fabric. But let's go ahead and take a look at spit splicing first. So this is my scarf, and we're going to pretend that I just ran out of yarn and I need to attach my new ball of yarn. And what I've done is I've cut into the new ball of yarn enough so that I'm matching up gold with gold. And the color changes in this yarn, they're quick enough that you won't have to unwind very much yarn to get to the right colors, so that the whole effect of the scarf won't be broken. The color effect won't be broken if you match up the colors like this. So this technique works with any animal fiber, and usually what I say is if you're working with a blend like this silk merino blend, it's always worth a try because it saves you from having to weave in more ends. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take one end and untwist the plies and separate them half and half. And this happens to be 2-ply yarn. So I have 2 plies. I'm going to cut an inch out of one of the plies, and I'm going to do the same thing with this side. Just an inch out. And it's called spit splicing for a reason. And you can look up at the little picture-in-picture if you want to see how this part works. I am going to put some spit on this. Okay, I put it in my mouth. I have a little bit of spit on this. Don't let anybody tell you you can use water, because everybody knows spit is special. So I'm going to wind these two things together, these two ends together. Like this. And then that inch that I cut out of each half, I'm going to line it up. You'll be able to see the thickness change. We want those ends to line up so that there is no change in thickness. And I'm about right there. I'm going to put it in the palm of my hand, and using heat and friction, we're going to felt this together. And if it's fall or winter and you're wearing jeans, you can also just do this against the pant leg of your jeans, because jeans have good friction for spit splicing. And I just keep moving it around a bit to see if there's some part that looks thicker. And it's all starting to look very good. Okay, and that's our yarn all worked together. I do have one tiny little spot. It doesn't have to be perfect, especially in garter stitch like this. It won't show. But that is 2 fewer ends to weave in this whole project. And so now I want to get to weaving in the ends, because if you're going to be using spit splicing, you're only going to have 2 ends to weave in. And so I'm going to show you on this big bulky sample with a contrasting color of yarn. And the end that you're going to weave in is going to be, the 2 ends will be at 2 different corners, or at corners and not in the middle of the work. But I'm going to show you in the middle of the work here, just because it's easier for me to hold on to. If you take a close look at garter stitch, you have what I call umbrellas and smiles, umbrellas and smiles. And we're going to use the umbrellas and smiles to weave in the end so that the fabric won't lose any elasticity when we're doing it. And the first thing I want to do is come up through a smile and the smile above it. And you can pull that tight. And then right next to that smile is an umbrella. Take the tip of your needle and follow that umbrella down to the left to the next smile. Go down into that smile, angle your needle to the right, go down into the umbrella below it, and pull that tight. You'll start to see a pattern emerge here in a moment. Take the tip of your needle and moving to the left, follow that smile around, go up into that umbrella, angle your needle to the right, go up into that smile that you were already in once. Follow the umbrella around, down into the smile, angle over, down into the umbrella. You were already there before. You start to see this shape that's coming out. Follow the smile around, up into the umbrella, up into the smile. Follow the umbrella around, down into the smile, down into the umbrella. Follow the smile. Follow the umbrella. This is also the way you weave in ends on the back side of stockinette stitch, just that the purl ridges are closer together. It works the same for this. And you'll be weaving in the same color, the same colorway into the work and not bright pink into tan. Anyway, if you pull it through several stitches, and this yarn has enough wool in it that it's going to hold it really well, that'll be good. You can take your scissors and cut the end short, and your end is woven in. I think that's all the techniques used in this scarf. Many thanks to SKEINO for sponsoring this tutorial. I look forward to seeing your finished scarves. Good luck.